So, welcome back. As you may know, my name is Chloe Valatori. I'm a relationship and communication expert. I'm a graduate of Princeton University and Pat Allen's Want Institute, and I use the tools of androgynous semantic realignment, which is the doctoral work of Pat Allen, who mentored me. I use tools of transactional analysis, which was created by Eric Byrne. And I use tools that I've come up with myself because I've been doing this work for a while now, over a decade, like 12 years. Um, I'm also over 20 years married. It will be 24 years this August, which seems, oh no, 23 years, which seems crazy. Um, but I found this work when I was already married, but I was just I was really unhappy. Um, and I didn't really understand it at first, but something resonated. And I had seen an incredible result in a friend. And when I saw how she was able to change her life around, that really convinced me into at least checking out what this woman had to say. Okay, so I'm going to, like always, give a brief introduction of the scholarship that this work is based on. What's very unique about this work are the tools to execute on that scholarship. So we don't see that a lot. But the scholarship itself isn't really up for debate. And it's not technically my work because it's existed for thousands of years, right? The philosophy of yin and yang, feminine and masculine, the idea that we are all both. These are ideas that have, and scholarship that has existed for a long time. Um, Yin and yang, that's probably thousands of years old. But we knew definitively that men and women all have two hemispheres in their brain. One side which is more yin or feminine, and one side which is more yang or masculine. And this was proven by Roger Sperry in the 1980s when he did experiments on newts' brains. And he found that on the right side, we have the seat of yin energy. Again, this is the feelings brain. This is passive, patient, vulnerable. This is the energy of sensuality, of sexuality, of creativity, of magic, of miracles. Um, Feminine energy is in the world to make it fun, but it's not necessarily of the world. This is receiving energy. And feminine energy tends to be a little slower moving. On the other side of our brain, we have the yang energy or the masculine side. And this is the seat of linear thought. This is competing, conquering, controlling. This is what we do when we're at work. Most of us are in our masculine because we're doing, achieving, and taking care of. Okay? One's not better than the other. All of us are both, and all of us have both sides. And all of us have a unique balance that is authentic to us that may change as we age, because women have hormonal changes and men have hormonal changes. These are known as menopause and andropause, right? So that fluidity is connoted by the swoop in the yin yang symbol. Now, when we talk about relationships, including the relationship that we have with ourselves, we are usually talking about how balanced we are in our relationships. And balance is really the bellwether of health, and specifically health in relationships with yourself and also with your significant other. We are often thrown off balance by childhood trauma, and we don't simply age out of childhood trauma. If it's not addressed, if we're not aware of it, if we can't express it, then the body will eventually manifest it as disease. So this work literally keeps you healthy. It's like preventative medicine. And it's one of the things that I love about it. In fact, doing your psychological and spiritual work will put you in such good stead that you may get away with things. I've anecdotally seen people who are very vigilant about their spiritual and psychological work, maybe less vigilant about taking care of their physical body, but nevertheless have seemed to really beat the odds on a lot of things. One example is my mentor, Pat Allen, who had cancer in her family, and she beat cancer twice. All her hair grew back in and it was brown. She's a woman who's in her 80s or 90s with brown hair. She's never gone gray. So little things like that I've seen in people who practice this work. Um, as I was saying, if we have childhood trauma specifically between the ages of 0 to 12, we form survival conclusions in order to cope with our environment and to enable us to get along with the people who run the refrigerator and are responsible for taking care of us. Usually our parents, maybe a guardian, maybe a grandparent. Be that as it may, as a small child, you often have to sacrifice your authenticity in order to attach to the adults around you. And based on that information, you form what are known as survival conclusions. And we think that these survival conclusions are existential truths, but they're actually not. They're just strategies of the moment. And when we bring these survival conclusions into our adult lives, they're almost always disastrous. Most scripting is negative scripting. And so when we bring this stuff into our adult lives, it really doesn't work out. Um, I was working with someone very recently, and because she was abused as a child, she's developed something of an aggressive persona because she had to go up against her dad when she was very small, and her dad was physically and verbally abusive. And now, when she has conflicts with people, if they touch that original childhood wound, she becomes very aggressive and it ends up shooting her in the foot. She ends up not getting what she wants. Um, I did a little reel about it today, actually, but she doesn't like dogs. Had a very bad incident with a dog as a child. And her neighbor has a dog and it's always wandering over into her yard. And they have talked about it. She hasn't lost her temper. Now the neighbor has a girlfriend. And so the dog is coming over more because the girlfriend doesn't know. She was through the roof on it. But instead of reacting to that trigger, she took a different path. She went out there, she was really nice to the girlfriend and just let her know what was happening. And the girlfriend responded very well and handled the dog. And it was kind of a miracle. My client, after that experience, called me and was sobbing, but only for a short period. Then she was laughing. And this is what's known as primaling. So all of the every tear you've suppressed, all the anger, every feeling you've suppressed needs to come out or it will manifest as disease. And so that's what's known as primaling is when you get triggered, you release emotions that may seem out of place in that moment, but they've been buried for a while. And so if you think that that's happening, that's one of the things we really work on in my module one, which by the way, we are starting soon. If you want to get into that live module, because we'll really go a lot deeper. As one of my clients found me through the the YouTube recordings and she said, "Yeah, I knew I needed to get me some of that paid content." So yeah, it is different. We do go deeper. It's very transformational. So if you want to sign up for that, that's the module packages and that's on my website as well as linked in my Instagram and in the chat. Um, but yeah, so that's what we're really working on in module one is understanding when we are being triggered and how to start unearthing and excavating the patterns that don't serve us and stopping doing that. It takes time. Nobody does it alone. Um, But yeah, that's what this work is about. Okay. So now I'm going to take your questions and you can put in the chat or you can raise your hand. I assume you have questions if you're here. Yes. Juliet.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, so my question was something based on what we're going to see in the modules.
Yeah.
In module one, are you going to go over like how to spot your triggers? Because when it comes to spotting my triggers, I'm kind of at a loss. I kind of like go blank when there is a trigger and I immediately just run away. So,
Right. And that's, yes, we're absolutely that. I mean, we work on that really a lot in module one and module two.
okay.
It's kind of a process. But yes, that's really, really important to be able to recognize when they're happening. And for us women, sometimes we'll feel it in the body first before we're actually even aware mentally of what's happening. So sometimes people will tell me like, "Oh, I started sweating. I started getting hot. I started feeling nauseated. I got a headache." Whatever it is, or symptoms, allergy symptoms, because what happens sometimes is when we feel it in the body first, the body takes over and it'll sometimes shut down the autonomic nervous system as a way to protect you because it thinks your fear is signaling that you can't handle what information is going to come out. So the important thing is actually to do the opposite, to take a counter action, to not leave, to hang in there. And so we'll work on some strategies for how to do that.
Okay.
Good question, though. I'm excited to get started on that. Elizabeth.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi, welcome back. How can I help you?
Thank you. So I had a question. Okay, so based on your intro, when you said feminine energy is not of the world, it's receptive. I understand receptive. When you say not of the world, is that biblical based? Can you expand on that?
Yeah. Okay, so, we have obviously we have energy here and some things that we can touch and handle, like a cup or a glass or a phone. Um, some things we cannot touch or handle, but we can feel them, right? And so that's what I mean. It's in the world to make it fun, but it's not tactile in the same way that masculine energy is. Feminine energy is more evanescent, so it moves differently. If you've ever heard the metaphor of the black cat and the golden retriever, where the black cat is the feminine energy and the golden retriever is the masculine energy. And there's always something magical about the black cat, right?
Mhm.
The feminine energy is a little bit more magical, it's a little more mysterious, it moves slower. Um, and again, these are just definitions. These are just words that we have to use in English. Like we could also call it yin energy, um, to describe this duality. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, it does. So it's more like masculine energy is more concrete. It's like a go-getter thing. And then feminine energy, can I say it's more abstract or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a good metaphor for masculine energy is a brick, and a good metaphor for feminine energy is a flower, right?
okay, yes.
Because there's so much about a flower that you don't even see, right? It has smell. It's alive in a different way that a brick is. So yeah, it's a subtle nuance. There's a great book called The Yin Yang of Life. I've recommended it before, and it really goes into a lot of the details about the differences between masculine and feminine energy. Um, so yeah,
Okay.
check that out if you want to. I think Juliet got into it. Did you read that, Juliet?
Yeah, I kind of skimmed it.
Right.
I found a lot of it kind of confusing, maybe
Yeah.
because I don't really have too much experience with this concept, but I thought it was a good book.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a little dense. and it's kind of a book where you kind of like come and go from it. You can read it cover to cover. I have done that, but it's also something that like takes time to sink in.
Okay. Can I quickly give you an update on something
Yes,
I
please
went
do. I
over?
love to hear your updates.
Okay, so my update is not the work thing, it's something else. Do you remember a few weeks ago there was the guy at work where we were kind of talking and then there was a tiff and then he just disappeared. He went on vacation and then like I haven't heard from him since. Well, he came back, okay, and then like I don't well, we've been doing that thing, what you call the 5 second flirt thing. Like
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
do it. Okay, this is crazy. I didn't do it intentionally. I just did it. Like it just happened.
It
Um,
sunk in and you worked on instinct. I
yeah.
love it.
So I ended up doing that with him, and then he returned the same thing. Like he held the eye
Yes.
contact, and so
Wonderful.
we've just kind of been, if we pass each other in the hallway, he says hello. It's back to how it was before with us. Like he's
Good.
cordial, and yeah. So it's just that phase again. Like I guess friends or whatever you call it. Um, but my question is something else. So while this is going on, you know how I told you about let's just say there's a lot. This is a popular guy, okay? Women are throwing themselves at him. He doesn't have to do anything. He just exists and these people are swarming around him. Well,
Right,
I'm not one of those people because A, I'm in my feminine energy, and B, that's not how I operate.
right.
So, and I have a lot of work to do. I don't even have time for that. So
Right, you're
usually
doing everybody else's job.
yes, that's right. So I'm usually at my cube working away because I want to finish at 5 so I can go home so I don't have to take this stuff home. So what's been happening, and this has been going on, I don't know for how long, for a long time. The women, let's just say two of the women who are like my age, one's a few years younger, a couple of years younger, and the other one's like 6 months younger.
Okay.
They view me as, I don't know if they view me as competition or what, but they are like, let's just say in love with this guy, okay? And whenever I am just doing my own thing, minding my own business, I am the least bit worried about these women. I could care less. They can have him, okay? But the thing is, they are like hounding me. Like every time I kind of have a central cube, so every people who walk by, they can see what I'm up to, things like that. Well,
Hmm.
every time they walk by, they're like, they want to know what I'm doing, what I'm working on, what am I about. And then they're trying to emulate me to a certain extent. Like, so if I'm wearing a red shirt and a ponytail, the next day they're wearing that thing, the same kind of clothes. And not only that, like they're just constantly watching me, like, what am I up to? What am I doing? Like, constantly tracking me. And I have nothing to do with them. Like, what does this mean? You know?
Weird. Yeah. So one of them's not the woman that you already in a
No,
thing.
no, no. So one of them, okay, so these are just two other women.
Okay.
They're not the one I told you about, you know.
Who knows? I mean, maybe first of all, it's convenient for them to stop at your cube if they're trying to run into somebody, right? And second of all, especially if this guy's talking to you, maybe they'll run into him at your cube. There's that. Maybe they've perceived, some kind of interaction with you guys. I mean, I would just take it as flattery.
Flattery and don't think much about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's tough. Your workplace sounds a little bit sometimes when you describe it, I don't work there, so I don't know, but sometimes when you describe it, it sounds a little cutthroat.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of have to have your guard up when you're there in general. But that doesn't mean that everybody's awful. So just take notes.
Yeah, I just feel like they're kind of possessive over him. And it's like honestly, it's not like he's lusting after them either. You know what I mean? Like it's just like they feel like they own him. And
Right.
it's like I am minding my own business. I'm kind of
But you get
friendly.
a little triggered by aggressive women.
Yeah, but I don't chase anybody, okay?
Good.
And B, I'm not sure why am I like such a I'm not like why am I such an interesting person? There's nothing. Not only that, we don't even work on the same things. I have a totally different job function. So they have no business worrying about what I'm doing because I don't I report to someone else. I do
Right,
something else. You know
right.
what I mean? It just makes no
Yeah,
sense. I
weird.
think it's just a women like the women I've noticed at my work are very cutthroat and
Yeah.
competitive. um I don't think I have the same effect on guys because guys are just doing their own thing, so
Right.
you know what I mean? It's just
Right.
the
And for
women.
a lot of women to be at work, they put themselves into their dystonic. And so that's what makes some women almost more cutthroat than men because they're in their dystonic. And this brings up a really good point. And we kind of been talking about this for a while, but I haven't really named it. And overall, men are better at standing together and sticking up for each other. And your workplace is showing that, right? Women tend to attack each other. However, if women can learn to support each other, and there have been instances in which women, of course, have banded together, there's nothing more powerful. So it's tricky with other women. I would try to neutralize them, kill them with kindness and and get more people on your side at this job because it sounds like a very political situation.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I kind of work better alone, number one, unless I'm required to do if I'm now if I have to do teamwork, like if I have to do a
Mhm.
group project, then yes, I'm all for that. But right now, I don't need I'm not on a
Okay.
project. So I'm just working solo and it works fine
Well,
because nobody's
it's just something to think about, like women don't, there's this whole thing now, women supporting women, right? And we often see the exact opposite, even if we're saying this is women supporting women. There's a whole franchise of shows called The Real Housewives about how women don't support women. So, you know, it's just something to think about that
But why is that? Why don't they support each other? Is it because I think it's because of male attention. They
That
feel
I
like
think it's part of it. I think women look, we have bigger brains, we have more to manage, we have a more emotionality to manage. And so it's harder.
oh,
And so that's why part of what I'm doing with my work is I want to bring this issue and this, like, actually, when I first started doing this group, it was on an all-female platform. And one of the issues we talked about a lot was how do women support other women? And just simply making an effort since the social scripting, the epi scripting, which again we go more into in the modules what that means, but the social messaging is like I've said and you've noticed and you've talked about in several groups, um, pits women against each other. And so we have to make an effort to bond together. So if you do see an opportunity, and maybe this isn't one, but if you do see an opportunity, I'm saying this to all the women out there, myself included, if you do see an opportunity supporting other women, just do it. If you think you can do it and you believe in it, do it. Don't let the men have all the camaraderie. That's all.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. But thank you so much.
You are so welcome. You're doing good. I'm proud of you. Okay. Andrew, do you have anything you wanted to talk about? How's everything going? You still on track to get married?
Yeah, but so it's a little interesting because my wife passed last year, right? So I'm waiting for my family to catch up. So my kids are a little iffy still. So yeah, just and I got frankly, my fiance is much farther along in her life, so she's pretty much ready to retire and travel the world. I've got a house with an 84-year-old, 320 somethings, and like 8 animals. It's crazy. So I'm trying to like get things under control at home and slowly transition to the new life. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Has it been a full year since your first wife passed?
Oh yeah, that was March last year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So, in my experience, I've noticed that it'll probably take your kids another year,
yeah, probably.
you know. But 2 years, they'll be in a different spot.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I wanted to put get engaged and just let everybody know, like, look, this is the one. We'll take our time and let it slowly come together, hopefully. So, yep.
Yeah, I mean, but the other thing is that they're adults, so, you know.
Yeah, there's that.
And
At least in age they are.
right. Yeah, I understand. I have
Yeah,
a couple adult, quote, adult children, which is obviously an oxymoron as well. And it's really hard
yeah,
to kind of, l- l- as Mel Robbins would say, I guess, let them. But,
yeah,
you kind of got to do it. So I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't put your relationship in jeopardy,
yeah.
um, to accommodate their feelings, but I think it's nice that you're being sensitive and hopefully, if you can wait until next March around that time, they'll probably be more ready.
No, yeah, I think so. And plus, I'm taking care of the old my father-in-law, so
Oh, okay.
he's 84, and I just kind of even though
Is-
he's got two sons, I feel compelled to give him the best care he could possibly get. And they haven't really been great, so
Oh,
uh,
really?
I'm gonna
Okay.
keep that going as long as I can keep them.
Okay. Well,
So yeah, we'll see how it
that's,
all goes. Yeah.
yeah. Is your fiance being cool about it?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
she's
okay, good.
amazing. She's super patient. Yeah, it's just oof, I got lucky. So I
You
just got
really did. You lucked out.
it's interesting though that she's all the way down in Ventura. I'm up in Santa Maria, so it's a good hour and a half away drive. So we meet one day a weekend usually.
Hmm. Is that enough?
Uh, it depends. I mean, I still got a lot going on with work and everything else, but it's sometimes I want more. Yeah,
Right.
but it's what it is, right? That's our current situation.
Right, right. You're like,
Yeah,
there's a little lacking on the compatibility right now because you're at different stages. So,
yeah, totally.
but
No,
that's negotiable.
yeah, her daughter's on her own in Vegas, and she's got a good amount saved up, and yeah, she's just kind of ready. So I'm thinking of retiring early. I'm like, okay, I got ten years probably still in aerospace defense, and I love it still, and I don't know. So we'll see
Okay.
how it goes.
Yeah.
We were already working through everything great. If I have a couple of issues, I bring it up with her, and she just very matter of fact talks through it seriously, takes my concern seriously, same vice versa.
I
It's
love
been
that.
great so far. No major fights or anything yet, but we'll see.
How long have you guys been together?
Since last September, so
Well, almost a year. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So yeah, this is pretty much when the negotiating part comes in, like you're talking about. So like 9 months to a year is when this kind of stuff gets really negotiated.
nice.
So you're right on schedule.
Yeah,
Excellent. Okay, good. Well, thanks for your update.
you bet. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have a question or concern? Again, you guys, I'm starting that live module one, which will be really great. And we're gonna go a lot deeper. We're gonna go into my book, How to Live, Find Love, and Keep It, and that's on Amazon. I put all this stuff in the chat if you guys want to check it out. Most of my resources are available through my website, chloesconsciousnesstraining.squarespace.com. Yes, Elizabeth. Did you have enough?
So, yeah, based
Okay.
on what Andrew, like Andrew's um feedback and question,
Hmm.
I had a question. Like, I am wondering, you know, in the future, right? If there is if there's a guy whom I'm interested in and he that's mutual, right? How important, because so I'm in my early 40s. How important is it for, like, is this a masculine thing or is this normal? Like for the guy to be like getting approval, I don't know if approval is the right word, but like getting the consensus of the people in his life for him to continue or pursue a relationship. So let's say, I mean, would he like? if he's placing emphasis on his the opinion of his friends or his mother or I have no idea what, like how is what does that say about him, and is that normal at this point in my life? Because I'm looking for someone my age or older, probably older, you know.
Okay. Um, everybody is raised. Is he from this country? Is he
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
America? Okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people from other countries are raised with a different epi script. So there's basically two social scripts that exist in terms of like the way people raise their families. You're either raised as an individual, like we are in America, where it's kind of a me first situation here, right? It's the
Hmm.
individual over the group interest. But in some other countries, Asian countries, um, in parts of Italy, in other cultures, the group comes first. So, for example, I was working with a guy once and he does disaster relief all over the world. Every time you set up supplies, you have to have security or the supply line will get raided, except in Japan. In Japan, everyone lines up orderly. Sometimes they bring the workers gifts and there's no problems. Why? Because they put the good of the community first. It's not a me first society. In the US, when he sets up a disaster site, he's got to have security because people will crash the line. So it really just depends like what kind of culture he was raised in. If he was raised in a culture, for example, even if you were raised in America, but you come from, I have a client who's from an Indian family, like not Native American, but India, India.
Hmm.
And in that culture, arranged marriage is still very, very, very common. And so he's really not probably going to marry anyone unless he gets the approval of his mom and dad. And on top of that, he's got to get social approval. It's got to be the right cast, all these other things, subcast. There's all these other considerations. So it just depends on really how he was raised, if he's separated from his parents, or if he's um still locked into their way of thinking. Some guys get broed really easily. I had a client recently, what was like a year ago, she was dating a guy and he got broed, meaning he talked to his friends and they talked him out of her and he dumped her. And 2 months later, 8 weeks, he came around and he was like, holy shit, I'd made a huge mistake. I don't, I'm
Hmm.
never taking any guy's advice again. He's like, I didn't even write that text in which I dumped you. That was written by somebody else. Anyways, that was a year ago. Now they're together. They're such a great couple. They're one of my favorites. Uh,
Wow.
so sometimes guys will get broed. I mean, if you've ever seen Pride and Prejudice, right? That's what
Hmm.
happens in Pride and Prejudice is Mr. Darcy convinces Mr. Bingley not to pursue or marry Jane and almost ruins their whole romance, right? And then he
Yeah.
says okay and then he comes back. So it really just depends. Some people can think for themselves and some people prefer not to.
I see. So, but it has nothing. So let's say if the person's from here and there's no like groupthink or I don't know what you call it. So
Yeah.
then you're saying it's just how they're raised. It has nothing to do with masculine or feminine energy necessarily, right?
Well, I mean, it has more to do with whether or not he's an alpha. Okay.
Oh, oh.
So an alpha is somebody who has very strong feminine and very strong masculine. But we alphas are only like 20% of the population, 10 to 20%. And maybe half of those are negative alphas. So
Mhm.
if he's a beta, then he's gonna be if somebody yells fire, he's gonna be running out the door. You
Yeah.
You're an alpha, you're probably not gonna do well with a beta. In my experience, sometimes men who are alphas can go with beta women, but I've almost never seen an alpha woman with a beta guy. So, you know,
Yeah.
he might not be compatible. We'll have
Right.
to see.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions. Okay, any last words before I wrap it up? Okay. Well, I'm usually here on Thursday nights. You can come and see me. This recording will also be available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. You can check out my books on Amazon. And I've been putting up original content pretty much daily on Instagram and TikTok if you want to look at that. If you have a quick question during the week, you can reach out to me. If I can answer it quickly, I will. If I can't, then we can set up a session. And if I don't hear from you, I'll see you back here. Have a good night.